This is Spain, a developed European country of nearly 50 million people. With such a large population, you might expect its people to be spread across much of the country. But when you look at Spain's population map, the country does not seem normal at all. Around 90% of its people live on just 30% of its land, mainly in major cities, urban areas, and densely populated coastal regions. Meanwhile, only 10% of the population is scattered across the remaining 70% of the country. This means that across vast areas of Spain's interior, instead of cities, you find small villages, abandoned houses, and kilometers of nearly empty land. On the population map, a massive donut of emptiness stretches across Spain's interior, surrounding Madrid and a handful of other major urban centers. Some call it Empty Spain, or in Spanish, España vacía. Others call it España vaciada, meaning not simply a Spain that is empty, but a Spain that has gradually been emptied. The difference between the two phrases may seem small, but the difference in meaning is enormous, because this region was not always so empty. There was a time when people lived in these villages, worked the land, and raised families. Shops remained open, the sounds of children filled the schools, and lights glowed from the houses in the evenings. But within just a few decades, millions of people left their ancestral homes and moved to Madrid, Barcelona, Bilbao, Valencia, Zaragoza, and other major cities along the coast. Some villages have become so empty that they now contain more abandoned houses than people. Despite Spain's beautiful climate, fertile land, mountains, rivers, and modern transport systems, why is the center of the country so sparsely populated? To understand it, we need to go back to the mid-20th century. In 1936, Spain descended into a brutal civil war between the Republican government and the nationalist forces led by General Francisco Franco. After winning the war in 1939, Franco ruled Spain as a dictator for nearly 4 decades. During the early years of his rule, Franco pursued a policy of economic self-sufficiency, known as autarky, heavily restricting foreign trade and imports, and isolating Spain from the global economy. The goal was to cut dependence on other countries. In reality, the results were disastrous. At the time, much of Spain's population lived in rural areas and depended on agriculture. Farmers struggled to import machinery and essential supplies, while the government controlled agricultural prices. Combined with wartime destruction and poor economic management, this crippled rural production and trapped millions in poverty. But the most important turning point in Spain's population map came in 1959. Facing an economic crisis, Franco's government abandoned its previous policies and introduced a new Stabilization Plan. Spain opened its doors to foreign investment, expanded international trade, and encouraged the growth of industry and tourism. What followed became known as the Spanish economic miracle. During the 1960s, Spain became one of the fastest growing economies in the world. New factories, offices, and businesses began appearing across Madrid, Barcelona, the Basque Country, and other industrial regions. At the same time, hotels and tourist resorts rapidly spread along the Mediterranean coast. Millions of tourists from Northern Europe were drawn to Spain's warm climate and beautiful beaches, and wherever new industries and businesses appeared, jobs followed. Meanwhile, the mechanization of agriculture meant that rural areas no longer needed as many workers as before. Cities were pulling people in with the promise of new jobs, while the changing agricultural economy was pushing them out of the countryside. Between 1950 and 1970, millions of people left small inland villages for major cities and industrial regions. Back in the villages, it was mainly the elderly who remained. Within only a few decades, the populations of many villages fell by more than half. But once people leave the villages, the problem deepens. As the population shrinks, so do investment, transport links, and essential services. And this is exactly where modern Spain's strangest paradox reveals itself. We all know that Spain has Europe's largest high-speed rail network. Madrid can be reached from cities such as Barcelona or Valencia within just a few hours. Yet in regions like Teruel, ordinary trains can be so slow that in 2018, a video of a tractor overtaking a train went viral. Because of the condition of the railway on that particular section, the train was forced to travel at only around 30 kilometers per hour. However, Spain's transportation system is not underdeveloped as a whole. The real problem is that investment and development have mainly been concentrated in regions that already had large populations and strong economic activity. As a result, rural areas have become trapped in a vicious cycle. When the population falls, shops close. When there are fewer students, keeping schools open becomes difficult. When there are fewer patients, local clinics shut down. And when passenger numbers decline, bus and train services are reduced. As these services disappear, living in those areas becomes even more difficult. The remaining young people then leave as well. As people move away, investment declines. And as investment declines, even more people move away. And the cycle begins again. But Spain's problem is not limited to people leaving the countryside. Very few children are being born across the country. In 2024, Spain's total fertility rate was just 1.10 children per woman. Yet, to keep a country's population stable over the long term, that rate generally needs to be around 2.1. People are starting families later, having children later, or deciding not to have children at all. The reasons include unstable employment, high housing costs, the expense of raising children, and the long wait for a secure income or a home of their own. In rural areas, the problem is even more serious. Not only are fewer children being born, but there are also very few young adults of family-forming age. In many villages, when one person dies, no one new arrives to take their place. As a result, the population is not only shrinking, it is also growing older. Yet Spain's total population is still growing. By April 2026, immigration had pushed it to a record 49.7 million, while also supporting the workforce and helping some rural communities survive. But most new residents settle in cities and coastal regions where jobs are concentrated. So much of empty Spain still sees little benefit. In recent years, Spanish governments have introduced various projects to improve rural internet access, transportation, agriculture, small businesses, and entrepreneurship. Some municipalities are offering affordable housing or financial assistance to attract new residents. Remote work is also creating new possibilities for some small towns. If someone can work through the internet, they do not need to commute to an office in Madrid or Barcelona every day. But affordable housing alone will not bring people back to the countryside. People need a place where they can do more than simply live cheaply. They need a place where they can imagine a future, a place with jobs, essential services, and a community that is not slowly disappearing. Spain, therefore, faces a strange challenge. It is modern, wealthy, and technologically advanced. Its major cities are among the most attractive in Europe, yet between these prosperous urban regions lies a vast stretch of land where centuries-old villages are slowly vanishing. Once, these villages were alive with activity. Today, in many places, all that remains are empty streets, closed windows, and crumbling houses. So, the question remains, if enough jobs and essential opportunities are created, can Spain's villages come back to life? And would you be willing to start a new life in one of these quiet, nearly empty Spanish villages?